Well, hey, CCF. I just wanted to let you know, as I was driving into the church this morning, I had this flashback to this memory from quite some time ago. I was a new driver, and I was always so impressed by my dad and how he could basically find his way around anywhere. And so I remember asking him one time, I said, "Pops, how do you do that? Like, how do you know every street? How can you figure it all out?" And he says, "Here's what you need to do, Justin. You need to fill up your gas tank and just drive around. Go get lost and then find your way back." Now you got to remember that this is before the day that we had apps like Waze and Google Maps and Apple Maps. And so if you wanted to know where you were going, you either use the map or you had to know it. And so he says, just go get lost and find your way out. Take time. You have more time than you realize, so go ahead and do that. And so I remember I would go and I would do that. I would just go. I love to drive anyway, so I would go for a drive and I would drive into some place I didn't know, and I really wouldn't pay too much attention. I'd take some turns and then I would try and work my way out of that. And what would happen is every once in a while I would get to a place where I thought I knew where I was again, and I said, okay, I figured it out. And then I realized I didn't quite know where I was, and I wasn't quite out of it just yet. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think that a lot of us are feeling that way about this year. That we think we are just about out of it. We think that we are moving on from 2020. And every time we think that we're in the clear, every time we think that we're ready to move on from it, something else happens. And I know that this has been a discouraging year for many of us, but what I want us to do is I want to bring you back to Psalm 100 and realize that through all of this, we can still give praise to God. We can still rejoice in what He's doing. And because there's a big reason at the end of that psalm. Here's what the whole psalm says. Shout with joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before Him singing with joy. Acknowledge that the Lord is God. He made us and we are His. We are His people, the sheep of His pasture. Enter His gates with thanksgiving. Go into His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him and praise His name. For the Lord is good. His unfailing love continues forever, and His faithfulness continues to each generation. Now, see, you might say, wait a minute, you just said we feel like we're almost out and then we're not. How can we give God praises to that? How can we sing with joy and gladness? And it comes down to that last verse. For the Lord is good. See, we have to remember in everything that we're facing that God in His nature is a good God. He cares about us. He hasn't forgotten about you. He hasn't forgotten about us. He is good and He will continue to be there. And then listen to how this ends. His unfailing love continues forever, right into today. And His faithfulness continues to each generation. So the same God that we read about in our Bibles, the same God that we read about in this psalm is the God that we have today. He continues right into this generation, and He will continue beyond this generation. And so while we might be feeling a little lost and we can't find our way out, we can be reminded that the God that we care about, the God that we serve, the God that is here with us in every circumstance, that He is good and that His faithfulness will continue through to us. And so even when we feel those moments where maybe we feel a little bit lost, maybe we feel a little bit stuck, maybe we feel like we can't find the way out, God's faithfulness will continue to us. And for us, that's a good reminder to continue to be faithful to God, even when it hurts, even when it's hard, because He is a good God that loves us, that cares about us, that is here for us. And so I want to just be able to encourage you with that today, that God is for you and His faithfulness is there for you. So let's continue to be faithful to Him.